Good morning. It is a beautiful day here in Austin, Texas. I'm filming actually on my birthday, and I wanted to start today by thanking so many of you that support me. So I've been in recovery a while, had some amazing times, had some really dark times. There is a team of people around me. I highly recommend that you develop a team around you. If you come from faith, I will tell you that I think God will provide the people that you need to support you. If you don't come from faith, I'm more than confident you can find a small team of people around you to support you. So before I could get into the meat of today's video, I wanted to thank all of you, and you know who you are. My groups that I'm in, my best friends, my friends that watch this and give me feedback, friends that have supported me from day one, and it is an honor to do what I get to do. This is also the birthday that I outlive my father. It is really difficult for a variety of reasons. It is a challenge, and I've had to reach out to the group of people around me to help get me through this because it's something I've never been through. Quite honestly, I didn't think I'd live this long. And when you grow up in the inner city and you go through some of the things that I went through, and you face some of the things that you faced through adolescence, you don't really think you're going to live this long. And then you look at your father who died at an early death, a very early death, and you kind of go, man, I don't think I'm going to live that long. So today, I outlive my dad. My hope, my prayer is that I outlive him by decades upon decades. But in an effort to just show you how committed I am to getting healthy, I wanted to just honor the team of people that support me in the journey of life and outliving your parent. I can tell you when I get a little bit further down the road from this birthday, I'll do a video blog on this, what it's meant to me, the emotions, the pain, the grief leading up to it, and then the grief on the other side of it. But today I'm going to talk to you about something I've never talked about in any of my video blogs, and it has really come out of my own work. Today I'm going to talk to you about a concept called the ego. Now, before you kind of go, here we go, we're going to just talk about people with big egos, arrogant, prideful. No, I'm going to talk about the ego in a totally different way. I've never talked about this before in any of my video blogs, and it's as of a result of the work that I've had to do to process through understanding it. The ego is the conditioned self. It is a form of narrative that comes through our thoughts, what we were subjected to as a child. It is how we see ourselves through, unfortunately, the voice of the critical parent even. The ego is, in many ways, a narrative that our thoughts create for us. And then we kind of fall into the thought of, well, we're just our thoughts, right? If we think it, we are it. And the truth is that's not true. We have so many thoughts that come through our mind that we don't act upon, that we wouldn't act upon, but we're tempted. We have these thoughts. We are not our thoughts. These are just thoughts that go through our head, and we are not a slave to our thoughts. But the ego loves to move through our thoughts. The ego loves to operate on shoulds and should nots. It's rooted in low self-esteem, worst case scenarios, anger, resentment, lashing out, punitive, being critical, black or white. The ego in many ways is an angry 2-year-old that you just can't ever keep happy. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. The ego in many ways slams us on a daily basis. We are so hard on ourselves in life. The ego can be a pathway into self-shaming and just being so critical on ourselves. The ego's never happy. And the ego can operate like this. You can get angry and the ego will say, you should do this, you should tell that person that. And you think, you know what? That's right. And then you act on it, and then the ego comes back and goes, why would you ever do that? That was the stupidest thing that you should have done. I can't believe you would be so stupid to do that. The ego, in many ways, is formed from the caregivers and the caregiving that we received when we were young. It is formed through the messages that we received growing up. And those messages oftentimes can become very controlling, very demeaning. It is the voice of the critical parent that loves to shame us. It operates kind of like an angry 2-year-old that just reverberates throughout our body, our soul, and it just makes us spiral. And it breathes life into the self-critical, self-shaming feeling that overwhelms us so many times, not only in life, but in our recovery and in our repair work. For the betrayed, it can look like this. You might be willing to give your spouse or your partner a second chance, and you hear this voice that says, "How can you be that stupid? I can't believe that you would be so stupid to give them a shot. You're so naive." The ego can look like this for the unfaithful. "You are such an idiot. How could you do this? How could you jeopardize your future, your family, your life? You are the biggest failure of your entire family. You should quit. You should give up. You should consider suicide. You are such a train wreck. There's no hope for you. There's help for other people and there's hope for other people, but there's no hope for you." When you are bombarded with those messages time and time again, you believe that they are coming from you and that that is you speaking to you and that you should follow that voice, when in reality, that's not the case at all. For example, when a betrayed hears that, you might hear those voices that say, you were so naive. How could you not see what was happening? Or perhaps you were a spouse that was doing their best to preserve a relationship that wasn't perfect, and you're not supposed to be a private detective, and you could have never seen what your unfaithful spouse was trying to do. You haven't been trained in being a detective, and you were going about life and loving your kids or doing your job or just pursuing the life that you thought you had. How could you see that? For the unfaithful, it may be something like this. No, maybe you made some terrible choices because of some trauma that's been in your life, and you were looking for support, looking for what you thought would be the right choice, and you made a terrible choice, and you've caused a ton of people a lot of pain, but you are not without redemption. You are not without hope to heal. I don't know what can happen with your family. Maybe a miracle can happen, but you are not the worst member of your entire family, and you actually made a terrible choice, but you are not the sum total of your mistakes, and there's hope for you to heal. This is about healing, my friends. This is about being able to understand where these voices come from and not be a prisoner to these voices anymore. This is about discerning and understanding and being able to say, wait a minute, where is that voice coming from? So here's a few pointers to diffuse, overcome, even heal from this ego that may be berating you on a daily basis. Number one, we have to challenge the narrative of the ego. For example, the ego would say, there's no hope for your marriage, you're done, he or she is done with you, you're a train wreck anyway, you should just give up and quit. Or perhaps there is hope, perhaps if we get the right help, he or she will wake up, maybe I can heal, maybe there is a future for us, and maybe there's thousands of people who've gone through infidelity before and seen their relationship healed, and possibly even have a better relationship because they did the work and they did their own work to heal. I've had to do this in my own life. Approaching this birthday, I've heard a ton of voices say, you're going to die very soon, just like him. You're probably going to have the same cancer. You're probably going to go through all of this. And I've had to say, or my dad was a decorated Vietnam vet who was subjected to Agent Orange, who died from some terrible cancerous carcinogen that I've not been exposed to, and I'm going to actually live a very long life, and I'm not going to die from the same things that he did, and I'm actually going to process this grief that is inside of me that continually makes me terrified. I'm actually going to be okay and live a long life. I'm challenging the narrative that hits me upside the head time and time again. You've probably had lots of narratives that are like Mike Tyson punches to the face, and you have to learn how to challenge that narrative and speak back to that voice or challenge it and go, or I'm actually going to do my work and I'm not going to be a mistake the rest of my life, and I'm actually going to heal, and I'm actually going to find joy once again. Maybe you need to say that to yourself. Next is you're going to need outside help to do this, and a trauma expert can provide a backdrop for you to understand who has infiltrated this ego, what voice has operated in your life through the ego. Where did you learn this voice? Where is the critical parent or critical guardian when you were a child that has been able to create this angry, self-shaming, never happy ego? Next, we need mindfulness and awareness. And we actually have to track this and begin to be discerning and question the voices that you hear. Let me tell you, you are not operating in your ego when you are compassionate upon yourself and compassionate upon others. How many times have you told people your story and they've said, well, let me tell you, if they cheat on me, here's what I'm going to do. You don't know that. That's your ego. How many times have people said, oh, if I was you, I would just leave? Or if you were in my position with decades of history together and kids and assets and the chance at a miracle, perhaps you would be open to the possibility of restoration. I would encourage you the next few days, start to track the voices in your head. Start to track these voices that assault you. Know that if you're being compassionate upon yourself and compassionate upon others, that's not your ego. That's the higher self, the true self. A therapist made this example. I loved it. The ego is the Old Testament. The true self, the higher self, is the New Testament. If you don't come from faith, the ego is the cranky, angry 2-year-old. And the true self, the higher self, is, about 5 or 6 years old. Our kids can be adorable. They're fun. They can maybe dress themselves. They have cute little sneakers and socks. You just look at them and you're like, gosh, I love you so much, I want another one. Or the true self, the higher self, is like that perfect Labrador puppy that you're like, oh, what an adorable puppy. But the ego is that cranky, angry, terrible 2-year-old that's never happy, throwing things, raging about everything. Finally, let me level with you and say that this will be a difficult journey, but it's possible. I'm still doing work to identify the voices that can be incredibly critical and demeaning and degrading in my life. They've come from different sources, and I can assure you, people are the way they are for reasons. They've been subjected to some terrible voices, to some terrible parenting or caregiving. I'm not saying that any of this justifies an unfaithful having affairs or addictions or continuing to act out. I'm also not justifying a betrayed spouse behavior that might be borderline abusive and entails domestic violence. I'm not excusing any of that, but there are reasons we do what we do. And if you can begin to dissect out the voices, if you can begin to understand how the ego works, I assure you, you can find healing. You can find compassion for yourself and compassion for other people. It's been an honor to be with you. If there was one thing I was going to do on my birthday, it was going to be film. And I want to thank you for being with me. I want to thank you for your time today. I hope it has helped you. I hope it heals you.